This is Beyond the Controller on the BTP Network.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Beyond the Pitch. No, it's not Phil Brown. It's a different face and a different voice. My name's Michael Horn, and I'm the technical director at BTP. And we're going to start doing a segment called Beyond the Controller, where we talk about the electronic version of the beautiful game, and more specifically, FIFA 17 and the FIFA franchise of video games. If you're unfamiliar with the FIFA series, it's one of the most popular sports games and, in fact, video games in the world, having sold over 100 million copies worldwide. There are tons of people, like myself, who are passionate about the game. You can just ask my wife how many hours I spent in front of the Xbox swearing at it. So we've decided we're going to do a show where we discuss the game, some of the tactics, and bring in some people who are very familiar with the series, including today's guest, Mike LaBelle, or better known as Dirty Mike. Mike is a professional FIFA player who spends most of his time either playing the game or talking about the game on his YouTube channel, which has over 233,000 subscribers and almost 29 million views. And on his channel, Mike talks about the tactics of the game and even gives out tutorials and tips for guys like myself, a struggling Division 6 player, and helps people to get better at the game and to better understand the game of FIFA. Mike is really well versed, especially in the tactical area. He knows which formations to play, how you should move guys, what tactics to apply, all that stuff. So if you want to go check him out on YouTube, it's youtube.com/dirtymike, and he has a ton of videos on there. He's also on Twitch, where he'll live stream himself playing the game or chat with people and give them pointers. And he is certainly one of the best FIFA players out there in the world today. So there's no better guest to have joining us for our first ever episode than Mr. Mike LaBelle, Dirty Mike. Thanks for joining me today, Mike. I appreciate it. I know you just got back from Miami, right? You were out there for the FUT Championship?
Yeah, that was a good event. Everything this year with FUT Champs has been groundbreaking. I don't use that word often, but in terms of competitive FIFA, this is definitely more support, larger prize money, more exposure, you name it.
You just got back from that. What's a typical day like for you? Like, how many hours do you spend in front of a console? And, you're editing YouTube stuff, you're doing stuff for Twitch. Like, as someone who does this for a living, how many hours a day do you spend doing what you do?
It's definitely a full-time position. I think a lot of people often say, oh man, you play video games for a living, you make content for a living, and I'd love to do that. And sometimes it's hard to tell them, look, would you be willing to put 50 or 60 hours into it, especially with the addition of FUT Champions? Because now you're talking about playing large amounts. I'm not saying that you didn't play a lot or didn't play frequently before, but over the weekend, 40 games, you're talking on the quick end, maybe 12, 13 hours. On the slow end, anywhere between 14 to 16 hours just on your weekend done.
See, and that's on the weekend. So people that say, oh, I'd like to do that. Yeah, but when I've got a function to go to, a family party or something this weekend, you're like, sorry, you got to work. So I understand. That's crazy.
Well, I was gonna say it changes into being a requirement too. When you're a content producer, or people are interested in seeing, how'd your games go? Are you performing well? It's no longer optional. You have to do it. So you can't take off from that.
So recently you talked in a YouTube video how you started playing the game and how you got involved. And if anyone hasn't seen that video, they should go check it out on your YouTube channel. And you gave some insight on how you got to be where you are today. But you mentioned that you played soccer in college. So tell us a little bit about that. What position did you play? What were your skills? And give us an honest evaluation.
Well, I'm kind of an old school striker. I'm not sure how much or how big of a fan you are of soccer. I know in the U.S. it's kind of been on the come up, and that correlates with FIFA, of course, being so popular now, and the MLS is just growing. But I'm an old school striker. We're back to the goal, so you're receiving kind of like a target man. I'm 6'1", 200 pounds, so that was more of my role. Very good at taking the ball down, laying off to other people. And I was fortunate enough to play with a lot of amazing people when I was younger, which then allowed me to have the opportunity to play in college at a bunch of different universities if I wanted, and et cetera. But I was always a role player, just on a really good team.
All right, so then you played in college. Do you keep up with the game, or are you so involved with producing content and playing the game that, watching a match on a Saturday at 6 a.m. is kind of not your thing?
No, absolutely. I'm watching all the games, man. It even more so now than before, because even though when you're in college or you're going through, or even before that, adolescent, whatever, you're in high school, you have more time. This is part of your job. It's kind of integrated. I'm playing and creating content around a soccer or a football-based game, just depending where you're from in the world. And you should be consuming that content, so you make sure you pronunciate the names correctly. You understand what's going on. Oh, that was a good game. Because this is what people are talking about. It's relevant to what you're doing with work. It would be as if you worked at a job and you didn't do any research before you got that position. Or even you got hired on and then you refused to keep learning. You should definitely be involved or partaking in the sport that kind of correlates with everything. If you don't know soccer, you probably won't know FIFA, and so it'll show. If you're only a gamer, you're not someone who actually consumes or lives, breathes the sport.
Well, and from my perspective, that's actually how I got into watching the game, was through FIFA. I started playing FIFA, and it evolved into a passion for the game. So how much of that stuff that you see on TV, if any, can you incorporate into your tactics? Because you're a guy that's well known for your tactics and your ability to break down the game. Does any of that correspond, or are they just kind of two separate animals?
I think playing the game, like playing soccer in real life, playing the sport, let me rephrase that. Playing the sport, I think that helped a lot with correlation of playing the game. You understand triangles, how to move, all the rules, what works, what doesn't work. Okay, I've got a matchup where this guy's a little bit quicker than this guy. Maybe I can hit him with something in behind. And then adjusting to whatever game mechanics are involved in FIFA. You combine both. Because it is a simulation game. However, of course, it's still a video game. So there's going to be certain facets of FIFA that you need to play it like it's FIFA. Don't play it like it's necessarily a real soccer match. Like, across the body shot from this angle, that works well. If you're shooting from here, then you open up your body this way, that works well. I'm in this location, now I need to set up a little 1-2 pass. That you see what I'm saying? It's about building good habits and then kind of mixing real soccer or real football with the game and the simulation and everything that they've put into FIFA this year, whatever you can abuse. Because at the end of the day, you want to be successful, so you're trying to abuse certain game mechanics.
Okay, no, I get it. That makes sense. And if you've got a brain for the game and what you see on the pitch, I can see how that translates into actually playing the game on a console or whatever. Okay, so you're, like we discussed, you're known for your tactics. You're a guy that's how I first found out about you. I was looking to get a little better and to progress in the game, and your tactics, like, they make a big difference. I didn't think before, I was just one of those guys, hit start, let's start playing. But you put some time and effort, obviously, into understanding the tactics of the game, and like you said, the mechanisms within the game that you can kind of abuse or take advantage of. So what percentage do you think in a person's ability to be decent or relatively decent at the game is tactics, and then what percentage having, a Ronaldo or a George Best, and then what percentage is you can, know how to play games, use a remote, what do you think percentage-wise would be the breakdown between those three aspects of the game?
I've never had anybody word it quite like that.
I used a lot of words too.
I like, I like that you brought in percentages, because it's all about putting yourself in a position to succeed. So increasing the percentage of you being the best you, and that's where tactics come into play. That's where your personnel and your squad comes into play, right? So you're putting together the Ronaldos and the Gareth Bales and the George Best and the Ruud Gullits and the Paul Pogbas. Basically, you're high-rated, you're exceptional players. But if you're bad at the game, they're not going to make you good. They can't transition you from bad to good. They might be able to transition you from bad to not as bad.
Tell me about it.
So that's very important. Well, then the same with tactics. Tactics can make you better at being you, depending how you play. For example, we talk a lot about custom tactics in FIFA, especially in the competitive scene. And you can make your passing speed, and you can increase kind of your player positioning or how aggressive they're going to be via these custom tactics. But at the end of the day, if you're a passive person, with the way that you play FIFA, then they're not going to be more aggressive. If you don't play fast, you still play really slow, well, then it doesn't matter how quick your speed is. It's really not going to change your build-up. You still have to have this skill set, and it can make you a little bit better. Kind of like, this is going to be a real controversial comparison, but steroids. Steroids don't make you hit a baseball, right?
Right. They make you hit them further, though.
Yeah, if you could connect with the baseball, maybe you could hit it further, though. Exactly. Baseball or steroids don't make you, throw the ball harder if you're a pitcher, or be able to position or kind of pinpoint where you want to throw the ball. But they do make it where you could throw it harder. Excuse me. Right. And that's how I feel tactics and the team both work in the same way. They just make you a better you. If you know what players work for your play style, for example, if you play very fast, very slow, if you're into the tiki-taka, that quick passing, so maybe a Messi would be better for you. He's better suited than maybe even a Ronaldo, where Ronaldo would be better suited for many other people because of the sheer size and athleticism. But are you using all that size and athleticism? So you have to be very honest with yourself when you're looking at applying tactics, building the correct team, and then it's practice kind of makes perfect. I know that sounds very cliche, but at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Leads me to the next question. How do you practice? Do you play any offline modes, or do you just play online matches? And is there something that, guys like me that aren't professional, that are struggling to stay in Division 6, like, is there something that people should be doing, or is it just you got to play and that's how you get your practice?
I don't believe it's worth your time to play offline unless you're learning. And by learning, you don't know how to execute this skill move. You have no idea. You got to learn how to execute the skill move to then introduce it into an online match. And that's when you start to learn when and where and how to execute it versus real life opponents. But if you can't do it, well, you can't do it. So you've got to learn that. If your fingers don't move yet with the buttons, if you don't have good comfort with the left analog stick and the right analog stick, sure, play offline. That's fine. But when you're looking at becoming a lot better at a game, you have to play online because you need to see how people kind of read you, and then you get used to reading them. Because at the end of the day, FIFA is still all about you versus your opponent, and not necessarily with the teams and the tactics, but just mentally. If I outthink you, I'm going to win the game.
It's part of the thinking process and getting prepared for a match. Is there a certain formation this year that is like the formation, or is a lot of that dependent on someone's style and how they approach the game?
Strangely enough, because in many years it usually would come down to one or two formations that you just constantly see or you frequently see, and then people might change formations after they get a lead or if they're losing a game just as an adjustment based on how the match has been going. But this year in the competitive scene, I see 5 or 6 formations used. So you've got some variety, and of course it is about picking whatever formation you feel most comfortable in, but the fact that you could play 5 or 6 formations at the pro level, that's good. That means there's balance.
And they're versatile enough that you can play any style. You play tiki-taka, you've got a high-pressure counter, whatever, or park the bus, God forbid. You can use basically any formation for that.
If you play wide, then obviously it's better for you to have wings, right?
Right.
Now, if you play down the middle and you play quick, then it might be better for you to have a narrow formation. But someone who plays the same formation as I play does not mean that our styles are going to mimic, even though we're in the same formation. So it's still all very personal preference.
But that's not something that is it something that you would adjust if you were, if you're playing down the middle and you're playing like a 4-1-2-1-2, or is that something, if you see this guy's clogging up the middle of the park, are you going to switch your tactics and try like a 4-3-3 or something like that, or no? Is it just, you're like, I'm going to dictate how we play?
Well, I just made a video that hasn't came out yet. I was working on a video discussing formations versus formations. So my theory or my opinion regarding if you're doing a narrow formation versus a narrow formation, often the better player wins. Because you guys are both trying to take away the same thing. So it's going to be a battle in the midfield. And it's either lucky bounces or the better player, or it depends what kind of skill set we're talking about, how big the skill gap is. But I usually won't switch unless I'm noticing that I need to switch. Man, I'm not catching the flow well. My rhythm's not so hot in this match. I need to make some adjustments. And that's just being, once again, honest with yourself, where you can say, yo, this isn't working. I better make a change, or I'm going to have to make a change once I'm already losing this game.
Now, speaking of making a change, are there times where, because again, I don't do this for a living, but going home and I could play 1 or 2 matches and go, I can't, I feel like my guys aren't making the passes that I'm trying to make. Is there ever a point where you're like, okay, this just isn't my day. Let's go let's do more content today and we'll get back to the game tomorrow? Or do you just gut it out and go through?
No, I've rage quit many streams. You can tell when things aren't flowing. If it's not flowing, the best gift that you can receive is a 10-minute break sometimes, or 30 minutes, or an hour. Maybe it's just not your day. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're not clicking. Maybe you got other things on your mind. FIFA requires your focus if you're playing at a high level. Because if you take a couple plays off, you concede goals. You make mistakes. You're punished. So if your mind isn't in the game, then it'll show. A lot of people that I've done plenty of lessons and just worked with people playing FIFA, and a big issue is often focus. They just don't stay focused for the whole match, or they start to think, oh man, I'm in the 70th minute, I've been in this position before, and I lose this match. They start overthinking, and it often causes issues, causes problems.
When you're having one of those bad days, and you talked about raging on a stream, do you is that something like when if you're not streaming or anything? I've only seen a few of your Twitch streams, and you're always engaging with people and things, but are you a guy that likes to talk trash while you're playing? Or because you've shown some of your inbox messages where people have no problem coming at you, but do you ever give it back to anybody?
It can be a toss-up. I would say with my messages, I'm more of a troll than a someone who's coming at you trying to hurt you. Even though, FIFA's a funny game, man. People will reach rage levels they didn't know existed playing FIFA. It's one of a kind. FIFA rage is special. Every single week on Twitter, I see tweets about people breaking controllers. I saw a monitor broken. I saw a desk split in half last week. So every single week, things will be broken. Girlfriends will be lost. You name it. It just comes with it.
So you had a celebration motion captured for FIFA 14, if people don't remember. Do you actually work with EA, and do you have input with them when they're developing a new title, or is it just something that they knew that obviously through your credentials and your winning ability you got involved with that, or is there an ongoing relationship with them?
I just met with a bunch of the EA people in Miami, but previous or prior to that, I didn't have a real built-up relationship with EA. And the reason that I had a celebration in FIFA 14 was actually because they ran a competition and I submitted a celebration. So I don't think I was on their radar whatsoever. I just submitted a better celebration than the other people, or it was voted up by a lot of people, and I didn't have an online presence really at this point, so it wasn't as if I could, I guess, heavily increase the votes or increase the viewership or really pump my own numbers, so to speak. But it's cool that I got into the game. It was an awesome experience. I actually wish I did have a bigger YouTube at the time, because most people don't even know that I had a celebration in FIFA 14 because they're just newer to my channel than those years. Then that was got to be one of my first years of making content.
Do you get to play the game early? Because I know that you this year you came out with some preview videos before it was out, or is that just a...
I know a couple people, but I really don't have, like I said, an ongoing relationship. Not with the right people to call the shots, for sure. EA's very close-knit. It's a tough company to get in with. At least with FIFA, they're very careful. I think because there was so much with coin selling and coin buying that they are very, very careful. They're trying to work more with the community this year. That, from what I've seen, in terms of sending out different packages, maybe providing some additional information. But I never had access to anything before other people, which a lot of people assume I do, or that I get free copies because people ask me for stuff, and I'm sitting here like, man, I paid for it the same way you paid for it, man. I didn't get anything beforehand.
All right, so I know you're running out of time, but I wanted to ask. You mentioned that you offer private lessons, and how does that work for somebody that's like, I want to take my game to another level. I really take it seriously. Do you engage with them on Skype? Is that like how does that work? Do you coach them while they're playing the game, or do you review a match? How does that work with them? And is that something that I know people are interested in?
Well, let's talk about it. So I don't advertise for this service, but I do get so many inquiries regarding private lessons. So I'll work with a lot of those people, but it's not something that I promoted. I just don't think I'd have time, especially since this is a person-to-person type job. There is no promotion. There is no production involved. I don't reach thousands of people when I work with somebody for an hour, right? With just one-on-one time. But I like to call via Skype, whether it's on a visual like this or just voice is all good, just so I can kind of vibe, hey, what's going on? Because a lot of people know where they're struggling, and that makes it easier. Okay, well, let's work on this, this, and this. We play some games in the initial I guess consult, right? The initial get together. I like to play maybe 2-3 games, kind of gauge what's happening. I also have a private Twitch stream, which allows me then to watch you play, or you can watch me play. Either way, I'm able to either see what you're thinking, or you can see what I'm thinking, which is both of those are valuable. And then I offer, of course, my Skype and email as an ongoing support line. So if you have questions, like, hey, what do you think about this squad? I've been working on this. What do you? They can kind of, hey, what's going on? They have that access point. And then I also do a written report at the end of a lesson, like, look, this is what you should work on. Go home. Let's talk in a week. Let's talk in a couple weeks, etc. And I'll fall back. Because at the end of the day, you have to play the game to get better at the game. Every once in a while, I'll meet someone who doesn't want to play FIFA, but they want to be good at FIFA. And I'm like, that's not going to work.
I've played over 850, I think, matches this year, and I'm still not good. So it's not necessarily always practice, but
the right practice.
And now that you mentioned the focus and thinking about a defensive system, that's something that I definitely have to work on, because my guys just kind of run around at the back. I'm like, all right, he's going this way, so I'm vulnerable to the 1-2 passes a lot. So see, now you opened up my head, and I'm probably going to at least not get relegated from D6, so that's a start.
Analyzing your gameplay is crucial, even if you don't know exactly what you're analyzing, because when you're in the game, you're often caught up in that match. You don't realize you're making a mistake here or a mistake there. However, if you're not playing and you're just re-watching your gameplay, you can see, like, damn, what was I thinking? That was a terrible choice. That was a poor decision. This decision cost me this match. And you can start to make mental notes. Or you could talk it out while you're playing. A lot of times, if I'm sitting by myself playing, if I make a good move or a bad move, I'll tell myself out loud, but that's just how I kind of learn. Or I say, you should have done an RBA pass there instead of just the through ball. Or you should have done a regular A pass there instead of a through ball. Or that was a good decision to make one more pass. Or you're overthinking something. I try to talk some of those situations out while it's happening.
So it's worth then, if anybody at home should record their whole match and kind of analyze it afterwards, it's worth your time to pick apart your game and see what you're lacking and things like that.
Well, you can do that now without having any external software. You can live stream to you at home, you right here, you. You can live stream, whether you're on the PlayStation or the Xbox, directly to Twitch, save past broadcasts, and you can watch it back. And you had to do nothing. Nobody saw it but you, and you didn't have to buy any external software. There is no Elgato involved, no AverMedia, so you don't need anything. Now there's no barrier for entry there. So there's nothing that's stopping you from being able to review your own gameplay.
Last question for you, because, again, appreciate all your time, and we had the faulty connection. If you were to come down from the mount like Moses did with instead of 2 big tablets full of commandments, if you got one commandment, what's the one thing that anybody playing FIFA 17 should do or know?
If I was people ask often, how do I get better? What do I need to know in order to get better at the game? What would you say are the top 3 ways to improve? I think number one, the most important facet of FIFA, and I'm going to say outside of just actually learning the game. All right. If you don't learn the game, that's a different ball game. If you don't choose to learn what A does and what X does, and we're going to assume you've got that down packed. The number one area is composure, because it applies anywhere on the pitch. Whether that's understanding the situation in the back where you need to clear it, where you understand you could pass out of the back, or you're not nervous when you have a 1v1 opportunity, something that you need to finish. It's all about composure. That's a big difference between pros and guys that are just really great at the game, is that because of their composure, it allowed them to build consistency. And that's where you're starting to become a professional at something. When you look at athletes, for example, any sport, you can pick any sport. The only difference between the guy in the NBA and you, outside of maybe some of the athleticism, maybe you're a big dude, maybe I'll even have the same build, is that they're going to hit more jump shots than you. They're going to make their free throws. Where maybe you're going to claim quite a few of those. If they're wide open from a three-pointer, they should hit that more than you should hit that. And it's just all about consistency. The same goes down happens for soccer. If you play soccer or football, if you're a striker and you get a 1v1, A professional should finish that 1v1 more than an amateur player. Facts.
Makes sense. Well, thank you so much. And again, I'll put a link in the description to your YouTube. And you've got you selling some personal merchandise too. You could get some Dirty Mike gear.
Well, yeah, actually, I have on some Eat, Sleep, FIFA Repeat shirt actually that I have on here. But I've been working out some different shirts and different merch that I want to drop. But yeah, I've got a few different things that if you're heavily involved in FIFA, you might like the line.
And you've got a Dynamo's lid on. Are you a supporter? I know you're from Houston. Is that your team? If you had to pick one team, or
I support Everton and then the Houston Dynamo. So Houston Dynamo are my MLS squad.
Okay. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you joining me today, and keep it up.
Thanks for having me.